Today, I'm going to be talking about Thomas Jefferson's presidency and some of the controversy that arose during his presidency because of some of the actions that he made. Thomas Jefferson is one of our founding fathers. He is credited with being the main composer of the Declaration of Independence. He served as Washington's Secretary of State until he resigned in 1793. He also was vice president to John Adams, who was the second president, and then Jefferson became the third president of the United States, as well as the first to belong to the Democratic-Republican Party. Now, a lot of the controversy that happened during Jefferson's presidency revolved around the fact that Jefferson made many decisions that did not correlate with what his party wanted. The Democratic Republicans really favored strong state governments. They wanted there to be less national power and more state power. They favored the French. They also favored those who were not as wealthy in society and agriculture. Their opposing political party, the Federalists, of course favored the opposite things. They wanted a strong central government with little state rights. They favored those wealthier in society, the British, and manufacturers. Now, one of the things that really bothered people about Jefferson's presidency was his decision to buy the Louisiana Territory from France. Now, that was not Jefferson's intent. Jefferson contacted France to see if Americans could gain access to the port at New Orleans, as well as for the Tennessee and Ohio River Valley farmers to be able to ship their goods down the Mississippi River. Jefferson did not know that Napoleon Bonaparte had become uninterested in his western territories. And so, instead of agreeing to the terms that Jefferson had asked, Napoleon Bonaparte offered all of the Louisiana Territory to Jefferson for only 15 million American dollars. Now, Jefferson had come to a great dilemma with this. Nowhere in the Constitution did it state that the president had the power to make such a decision. Jefferson knew that he could contact the states and vote. He also knew that he could make an amendment to grant the president power, but that would have taken a very long time. And Napoleon Bonaparte's deal was not going to be on the table forever. So instead of doing those things, Jefferson just accepted the offer. Now again, this angered many Americans because it just increased the power of the national government. It increased the power of the presidency. And that is the opposite of what they wanted. The Democratic-Republican Party didn't want a strong central government. And that is just what Jefferson created. He created a stronger central government than had previously been there. And so they were very unhappy with him. But even through this unhappiness, the Louisiana Purchase is still considered one of Jefferson's greatest accomplishments, as it doubled the size of the U.S. and it gained Americans access to both sides of the Mississippi River. Now, another thing that Jefferson did that angered Americans was his choice to stay neutral during the French Revolution, as well as just some other decisions made revolving around that. Now, like previously stated, the Democratic Republicans favored the French, and they of course wanted to aid the French. But Jefferson knew that since America was such a new country, and since they had just gained their independence, relatively new, that it was not a smart idea for America to go to war. So he decided to stay neutral. For a short time, this neutrality really benefited the U.S. as America was exporting goods to both France and Great Britain because they both needed supplies for war. So they were, of course, exporting more to those countries than they were before, thus increasing their revenue. But because of this neutrality, France and Great Britain soon stopped all trade with America because they wanted America to pick a side. They wanted America to help, and America wasn't actually helping. And this did hurt the economy, but Jefferson knew that war would hurt the economy more, so he continued to stay neutral. He did still export goods to other countries, and this also caused another problem, which was British impressment of American men. So a lot of British soldiers were actually abandoning their ships and getting onto American ships and posing as American men. Now, this was a problem because it was illegal. You can't just leave war. And so what was happening was many British soldiers were capturing and boarding American ships and keeping the American men hostage, thinking that they were secretly like ex-British naval soldiers. Now, one incident where this happened was the Chesapeake Leopard incident. This happened in 1807. The warship, the Leopard, fired upon the American frigate, the Chesapeake, and killed 3 American soldiers. They then boarded the ship and impressed 3 American men, claiming that they were actually British soldiers. Now, they did return those 4 men, but impressment kept happening. And because of this, Jefferson enacted the Embargo Act, which stated that all exporting of Americans' goods would cease. Now, this damaged the economy even more than when Great Britain and France decided to stop trade with America. No exports were happening now. This also angered many Americans because it was hurting their business. And many didn't listen to it. Many participated in illegal exporting and importing of goods, and it all around was not a favored act. Because of that, Jefferson then went on to enact the Non-Intercourse Act, which just stated that no trade would be allowed with France or Great Britain. Now, this does seem like a failure in Jefferson's presidency because it did hurt the economy, but it is what he had to do and what he thought would be best for America, even though it did end up backfiring. However, it did keep America out of war during Jefferson's presidency, but in his successor, the 4th president, James Madison, America would begin to aid in the French Revolution. Now, Jefferson served 2 terms. He left office in 1809 when James Madison came in. He retired to his home in Virginia,